Tonight, a girl treated like garbage will be handed to a monster. Not because she's special, because no one else wants to die in her place. Alpha Kale Draven, the man even the bravest warriors won't look in the eye, just accepted a gift the entire pack laughed at. An Omega with no wolf, a spare, a name even her own family forgot. But here's what they don't know. The king didn't take her to break her. He took her because when she stepped close, the beast inside him, the one that's killed dozens, went quiet for the first time in years. If you want to see how a rejected nobody becomes the one thing a monster can't live without, stay until the end. Drop a like, comment your city, and let's dive into this storm. The gathering hall stank of sweat, smoke, and something sharper, fear dressed up as pride. Alara Voss stood in the corner where the torchlight didn't quite reach, her shoulders pulled in tight, her breathing shallow. She'd learned a long time ago how to make herself small, how to exist without taking up space, how to survive in a world that had decided, long before she understood the rules, that she didn't belong. Around her, the rival packs had gathered for the Blood Moon Summit, a once-a-decade event where alliances were made, grudges settled, and power redistributed like meat thrown to dogs. Alphas strutted. Betas postured. Omegas with wolves stood proudly beside their mates, their eyes gleaming with the kind of certainty Alara had never felt. She had no wolf, no inner voice, no second shadow that made her whole, just a hollow space where everyone else had fire. "Stay out of sight," her cousin Davern had hissed at her before they'd arrived. "Don't embarrass us more than you already do just by breathing." Alara had nodded. She always nodded. But tonight, something felt different, wrong. The air was too thick, the laughter too loud. And Davern kept glancing at her with a look she'd seen before, the same one he wore when he was about to do something cruel and call it strategy. The hall doors slammed open. Silence dropped like a stone into water. Every head turned, every breath caught. And then he walked in. Alpha King Kyle Draven. Alara had heard the stories. Everyone had. The warlord who united the northern packs by force. The man who killed his own father in single combat and took the throne before the body went cold. The Alpha cursed by something dark and old, something that turned him into a beast when the moon pulled too hard. They said he didn't speak much. Didn't need to. His presence did the talking. He was tall, taller than anyone in the room, and built like violence given form. Scars crossed his arms, his neck, one cutting clean through his left eyebrow. His hair was black, pulled back tight, and his eyes were a shade of gray that looked like winter stripped of mercy. He didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't acknowledge the nervous greetings thrown his way. He just moved through the crowd like a blade through water, and the sea of wolves parted without a word. Alara's chest tightened. She pressed herself further into the shadows, praying he wouldn't look her way. But Davern was already moving. "Your Majesty," Davern called out, his voice slick with false warmth. "An honor. Truly." Kyle stopped. His gaze slid sideways, landing on Davern with all the interest of a man looking at mud on his boot. "Alpha Davern Voss," Kyle said. His voice was low, rough, like gravel scraped across iron. "I didn't know your pack was worth mentioning." A few wolves snickered. Davern's smile twitched, but he held it. "We're humble," Davern said smoothly, "but loyal and generous." He paused, his eyes flicking toward Alara. "In fact, I brought a gift, a gesture of goodwill." Alara's stomach dropped. No. He wouldn't. "A rare offering," Davern continued, louder now, pulling the attention of the entire hall. "An Omega, untouched, unbonded." The room buzzed with murmurs. A few wolves laughed outright. Kyle's expression didn't change. "I don't need charity." "Not charity," Davern said quickly. "A token. She's unique." "Unique, so..." someone snorted from the crowd. "She doesn't even have a wolf." The laughter spread. Alara felt the heat crawl up her neck, burning behind her eyes. She wanted to run, to disappear, to sink into the floor and never come back. But Davern's hand clamped down on her arm, dragging her forward before she could move. "Here she is," Davern announced, shoving her into the center of the hall like a piece of livestock. "Alara Voss. Clean, obedient, yours, if you'll have her." Alara stumbled, catching herself before she fell. Her hand shook, her throat closed. Every pair of eyes in the room was on her now, judging, mocking, dismissing. She forced herself to look up and met Kael's gaze. For a moment, the world went still. His eyes weren't cold. They were something worse. Empty. Like he'd seen too much, felt too much, and carved it all out just to keep standing. But then something flickered, just for a second. He tilted his head, studying her the way a predator studies prey. Not hungry, just curious. "She has no wolf," Kael said. "No," Davern admitted, his smile faltering. "But she's broken," Kael finished. The word landed like a slap. Alara flinched, but she didn't look away. "Yes," Davern said, too eager, "which makes her harmless, easy." Kael's jaw tightened. Then, to everyone's shock, he stepped forward. The hall went dead silent. He stopped in front of Alara, towering over her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him, close enough that she could see the faint scars on his knuckles, the tension in his shoulders, the way his breathing was just a little too controlled. "Look at me," he said quietly. She already was. "What's your name?" Her voice came out barely a whisper. "Alara. Do you want this?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her what she wanted. She swallowed. "It doesn't matter what I want. It does to me." That stopped her cold. Kael leaned in, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "If I take you, you're mine. Not his, not theirs. Mine. You understand?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. He straightened, his gaze sweeping the hall. "I accept." The room erupted. Wolves shouted, some in disbelief, others in outrage. Davern's grin stretched wide, triumphant, but Alara couldn't hear any of it, because Kael's hand had closed around her wrist, not rough, not cruel, and he was already pulling her toward the door. "Wait," she stammered. "I don't—" "You're done here," Kael said, not slowing. "We leave now." "But now." And just like that, Alara Voss, the girl no one wanted, the Omega with no wolf, the mistake her family had tried to erase, was dragged out of the only life she'd ever known. By a king the world called a monster. The journey to Kael's stronghold took 3 days. 3 days of silence broken only by the crunch of boots on stone, the creak of leather, and the occasional growl from the guards who flanked them. Kael didn't speak to her, didn't look at her. He rode ahead, his posture rigid, his jaw locked tight like he was holding something back. Alara rode behind him on a second horse, her hands gripping the reins so hard her knuckles ached. She didn't know where they were going, didn't know what he wanted from her, didn't know if she'd survive the week. All she knew was that every mile they traveled, the air grew colder, the trees thicker, the sky darker. By the time they reached the stronghold, the sun had disappeared behind jagged peaks, and the only light came from torches lining the fortress walls. It was massive, brutal, built from black stone and iron perched on a cliff like a beast ready to pounce. Alara's heart sank. This wasn't a home. It was a prison. Kael dismounted without a word and gestured for one of the guards. "Take her to the east wing, 3rd floor. Make sure she has food, water, and clothes." The guard nodded. Kael turned to leave. "Wait," Alara blurted. He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. "Why did you take me?" she asked, her voice small but steady. "You didn't have to." Kael stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said, "Because you didn't flinch," and he walked away. The room they gave her was cold and sparse, a bed, a table, a single window overlooking nothing but mountains and mist. Alara sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She'd been given away like trash, taken by a stranger, brought to a place that felt like the end of the world. And yet, she wasn't dead. That had to count for something. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in," she said quietly. The door creaked open, and a woman stepped inside. Middle-aged, sharp-eyed, with graying hair pulled into a braid. "I'm Mira," the woman said. "I run the household. You'll answer to me." Alara nodded. Mira studied her for a moment, her lips pressed into a thin line. You're the Omega. Yes. The one with no wolf. Yes, Mira huffed. Well, that makes two broken things in this place. She set a bundle of clothes on the table. Get changed. Dinner's in an hour. Don't be late. Am I, Alara hesitated. Am I supposed to see him? The king? Mira's expression softened, just a fraction. He doesn't eat with anyone. Hasn't in years. She paused. But he asked about you. Alara's pulse quickened. What did he ask? If you were settling in, if you needed anything. Mira shrugged. Strange for him. He doesn't usually care. Before Alara could respond, Mira turned and left, the door clicking shut behind her. Alara sat there, alone, her mind racing. He asked about her. Why? That night, Alara couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet. And every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kael's face, the scars, the emptiness, the flicker of something she couldn't name. Around midnight, she heard it. A sound. Low, guttural, inhuman. It came from somewhere deep in the stronghold, echoing through the stone walls like a wounded animal. Alara sat up, her heart pounding. Another sound. Closer this time. A roar. She should have stayed in her room, locked the door. Hidden. But something pulled her forward. She slipped out of bed, pulled on a robe, and crept into the hallway. The guards were gone. The torches flickered, and the sound grew louder. She followed it down a spiral staircase, through a corridor lined with claw marks gouged into the stone, until she reached a heavy iron door. It was cracked open. Inside, she saw him, Kael, but not Kael. He was on his knees in the center of the room, his body convulsing, his skin rippling like something was trying to tear its way out. His hands were claws. His eyes glowed faint gold. And he was screaming. Alara's breath caught. This was the curse. The beast. She should run. She should... But then his eyes locked onto hers, and the screaming stopped. The room went silent. Kael stared at her, chest heaving, his body trembling. The glow in his eyes faded, the claws retracted. He looked confused. You, he rasped. Why are you here? Alara's voice shook. I heard you. You should have stayed away. I know. He stared at her for a long moment, something raw and desperate flickering across his face. Then he whispered, Don't leave. And Alara, against every instinct, every ounce of self-preservation, stepped inside. She crossed the room slowly, her hands raised like she was approaching a wounded animal. I'm not afraid, she lied. Kael laughed bitterly. You should be. Maybe. She knelt in front of him, close enough to feel the heat pouring off his skin. But I'm not. His jaw clenched. The beast is quiet, she said softly. Right now, isn't it? He didn't answer, but his hand, trembling and scarred, reached out. And when his fingers brushed hers, the room exhaled. The tension bled out of him. His breathing slowed. The wildness in his eyes dimmed. Alara felt it too, a strange, impossible calm settling over her chest like a blanket. What are you? Kael whispered. I don't know, she admitted. But for the first time in her life, Alara Voss felt like she might be something more than nothing. And Kael Draven, the Monster King, looked at her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. The next morning, everything felt different, sharper. Like the world had tilted slightly, and Alara was still finding her balance. She woke in her own bed with no memory of how she'd gotten there. The last thing she remembered was Kael's hand in hers, the warmth spreading between them, and then nothing. She sat up slowly, her body aching in strange places. Not injured, just tired, like she'd run a marathon in her sleep. The door opened without a knock. Mira entered carrying a tray, her expression unreadable. She set it down on the table without a word. Did he carry me back? Alara asked. Yes. Did he say anything? No, but he looked different. Mira's eyes narrowed. What did you do to him? I don't know, I just touched him, and the beast stopped. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Eat. The king wants to see you in an hour. Where? Training yard. Alara's stomach dropped. Why? You'll find out. An hour later, Alara stood at the edge of the training yard watching Kael spar with a massive beta. The beta was good, fast, strong, precise. Kael was better. He moved like water, fluid and unstoppable, and within minutes the beta was on the ground, gasping. Kael offered a hand up. The beta took it, respect clear in his eyes. Then Kael turned and saw Alara. "Come here," he said. Every warrior in the yard stopped to watch. Alara walked forward, acutely aware of the eyes on her. When she reached Kael, he handed her a practice dagger. "What's this for?" she asked. "You're going to learn to fight. I told you, You don't have a wolf. I know, but you have hands and a brain. That's enough." He stepped back. "Show me your stance." She had no idea what that meant. Feet apart, knees bent, blade up. She tried. It felt awkward and wrong. Someone laughed. Kael's head snapped toward the sound. The laughter died instantly. "Again," he said to Alara. They spent the next 2 hours drilling basics, how to hold the blade, how to move, how to defend without overcommitting. Alara was terrible. She stumbled, dropped the knife twice, and cut her own palm trying to catch it. But Kael never lost patience. He corrected her grip, adjusted her footing, and when she finally landed a clean strike on the practice dummy, he nodded. Better. It was the smallest praise imaginable, but Alara felt like she'd won a war. As the session ended and the warriors dispersed, Kael walked her back toward the keep. "Why are you doing this?" Alara asked. "Because you're a target now. Everyone knows you're here. Some will see you as leverage against me. Others will see you as a threat." He glanced at her. "I need you to be able to defend yourself." "Against what? I'm nobody." "You're not nobody. Not anymore." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Last night you calmed the beast. No one's ever done that. Not with magic, not with force, not with anything. Just you. Your presence. I don't understand how, Neither do I, but it happened, and it will happen again. Which means you're valuable, dangerous even." His expression hardened, and in this world, dangerous things get hunted. The weight of his words settled over her like snow. "So you're training me to survive." "I'm training you to live." That night, Alara lay awake again. But this time the sounds from deep in the stronghold were different. No roaring, no screaming, just silence. And somehow, that felt like progress. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Mornings in the training yard, afternoons learning the stronghold, its halls, its people, its rhythms, evenings in her room, exhausted but strangely content. And every few nights, when the moon pulled too hard and the beast began to stir, Alara would find her way to that iron door. Kael never asked her to come, but he never sent her away. She'd sit with him, her hand in his, and the beast would quiet. Sometimes they'd talk, small things, careful things. Other times they'd just exist together in silence. And slowly something shifted between them. Trust, maybe. Or something deeper. One evening, Mira found Alara in the courtyard watching the sunset behind the mountains. "You're different," Mira said. "How so?" "You stand taller. Look people in the eye. You're not hiding anymore." Alara considered that. "I guess I'm not." "Good. This place needs people who don't hide." Mira paused. "He's different too, you know." "Kael? He sleeps now, actually sleeps. I haven't seen that in years." Mira's eyes were sharp. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I'm not doing anything special." "You're here. That's enough." Before Alara could respond, a horn sounded from the gates. 3 short blasts. Trouble. Kael appeared from the keep, already armed. "What is it?" A guard ran up, breathless. "Riders approaching. Fast. They're flying the Voss banner." Alara's blood ran cold. Davrin. "How many?" Kael asked. 6, maybe 8. "Let them in. But search them first. No weapons past the courtyard. The guard nodded and ran. Kale turned to Alara. Stay close to me. What do they want? You, probably, or leverage. Either way, this won't be friendly. The gates opened and the riders entered. Davern led them, his smile as false as ever. Cousin, he called out, dismounting. You're looking well? Alara said nothing. I've come to check on you. Make sure the king is treating you properly. His eyes flicked to Kael. As agreed. There was no agreement, Kael said flatly. You gave her to me. She's mine now. Yes, I've had some concerns, reports that she's been seen training, fighting even. That's not very Omega-like. She's not your concern anymore, but she is family, and family looks out for each other. Davern's smile widened. In fact, I've come with an offer, a trade, if you will. Kale's eyes narrowed. What kind of trade? Her freedom, for a favor. She's already free. Is she? Or is she just in a different cage? Davern looked at Alara. I can get you out of here, cousin. Back to civilization. Away from this cursed place and its monster king. Alara met his eyes. No. Davern blinked. Excuse me? I said no. I'm staying. Don't be ridiculous. You can't possibly want to stay here. I do. She stepped closer to Kael. This is where I belong. Davern's expression darkened. You're making a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. For a long moment, Davern stared at her. Then he turned to Kael. Fine. Keep her. But when the curse kills her, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. He mounted his horse and rode out without another word, his men following. The gates closed behind them. Kael looked at Alara. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. He was testing you, testing us. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. Something shifted in Kael's expression. Something warm. Thank you, he said quietly. And Alara realized with startling clarity that she'd meant every word. This place, this cold, brutal, impossible place, felt more like home than anywhere she'd ever been. Because for the first time in her life, someone saw her as more than broken. He saw her as whole. That night, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that Davern's visit had stirred something dangerous. She stood by her window, watching the torches flicker along the walls when she heard voices rising from the courtyard below. Angry voices. She pressed closer to the glass, straining to hear. Keeping her here is reckless, a man's voice said. Deep, authoritative. She's a weakness, a distraction. She's under my protection. Kael's voice cold as iron. Protection? The man scoffed. She's wolfless. She can't defend herself, can't contribute to the pack. What use is she? That's not your concern, Marcus. It is when it affects all of us. The warriors are talking. They say you've gone soft, that the curse is finally breaking you. Alara's chest tightened. She shouldn't be listening, but she couldn't pull away. Let them talk, Kael said. They're not just talking. They're questioning your judgment, your strength. Some are saying you should send her away before she gets someone killed. A pause. Then Kael spoke, and his voice was deadly quiet. If anyone has a problem with my decisions, they can challenge me directly. Otherwise, they can keep their mouths shut. I'm trying to help you, Kael. But if you don't do something about this situation, you'll have a mutiny on your hands. Footsteps. The conversation was ending. Alara stepped back from the window, her heart pounding. She'd known she wasn't wanted here. But hearing it spelled out so clearly, hearing that her presence was causing real problems for Kael, made it worse. She was a liability. A knock at her door made her jump. Come in, she said, steadying her voice. Mira entered, her expression grim. You heard. It wasn't a question. Some of it. Then you know what you're up against. Mira closed the door behind her. Marcus isn't wrong, even if he's an ass about it. There are people here who think you don't belong, who think the king is making a mistake. Maybe he is. Stop that. Mira's tone was sharp. Self-pity doesn't suit you. You want to survive here? You need to be smarter than them, tougher than them. You need to prove you're worth keeping. How? I can barely hold a knife without cutting myself. Then learn faster, train harder, show them you're not just some helpless Omega waiting to be rescued. Mira's eyes softened slightly. You've got something they don't. Something that matters to the king. Use it. You mean the beast thing? I mean whatever it is that makes him look at you like you're the only thing keeping him sane. Mira moved to the door. But be careful. There are people who'll see that as a threat, and threatened people do stupid, dangerous things. She left before Alara could respond. Alara sat on the edge of her bed, Mira's words echoing in her head. She couldn't keep being passive, couldn't keep waiting for someone else to decide her fate. If she was going to stay, she needed to earn it. The next morning, Alara showed up to the training yard an hour early. Kyle was already there drilling alone, his movements precise and brutal. He didn't stop when he saw her, just continued his forms. Alara picked up a practice sword, heavier than the dagger, and moved to the far side of the yard. She tried to copy what she'd seen the warriors do, failed miserably. The sword was too heavy, her grip wrong, her footwork non-existent, but she kept trying. After 20 minutes, Kyle stopped and walked over. What are you doing? Training. You're going to hurt yourself. Probably, but I need to get better. He studied her for a moment, then he took the sword from her hands and replaced it with a lighter practice blade. This one first. Build up your strength. I want to learn faster. Faster gets you killed. Proper gets you dangerous. He adjusted her grip. Again. They worked together until the other warriors arrived. Alara saw the looks they gave her, some curious, some contemptuous, some carefully neutral. Marcus was among them. He was massive, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his ear to his collarbone. He watched Alara with open disdain. We're wasting training time on her? He said to no one in particular. Cale didn't look up. You have a problem, Marcus. Say it to my face. Marcus stepped forward. I do have a problem. We're warriors. We don't babysit. Then don't babysit. Train. Cale's tone was flat. Or leave. This is ridiculous. She's... Enough. Kyle finally looked at him, and something in his expression made Marcus step back. You want to challenge my decisions? Fine. Challenge me. Right here. Right now. Otherwise, get back to work. The yard went silent. Marcus's jaw worked. He wanted to fight. Alara could see it in the way his hands clenched, the way his shoulders tensed. But he didn't. This isn't over, he muttered and stalked away. Kyle turned back to Alara. Ignore him. He's not wrong, though. I am slowing everyone down. You're learning. That's different. He handed her back the practice blade. Keep going. The rest of the session was tense. Warriors trained around them, but Alara felt the weight of their judgment. Every mistake she made felt magnified. Every clumsy movement proof that she didn't belong. By the time Kyle dismissed everyone, her arms were shaking and her pride was bruised. Better, Kyle said as the others filed out. It was the same word he'd used before, but this time it felt different. Less like empty encouragement, more like actual observation. I dropped the sword 3 times, and picked it up 3 times. That's what matters. He paused. Marcus is going to be a problem. I know. If he tries anything, I can handle it. Kael's eyebrow raised. Can you? No, but I'll figure it out. That almost got a smile out of him. Stubborn. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing. It's not, just dangerous. He started to walk away, then stopped. Alara. Yeah? Don't go anywhere alone, not until this settles down. Is that an order? It's advice, take it or don't. But if something happens to you, I'll burn this place to the ground looking for whoever's responsible. He said it so matter-of-factly that it took Alara a moment to process the weight of the words. He meant it. 2 days later, Alara woke to find a dead crow nailed to her door. Its wings were spread, its eyes gouged out, and carved into the wood beneath it was a single word, leave. Alara stared at it, her stomach churning. This wasn't a random act, this was a message. She pulled the crow down carefully, wrapped it in cloth, and carried it to Mira. Mira's face went pale when she saw it. When did this happen? Sometime during the night. Did you hear anything? No. Mira cursed under her breath. This is a threat, a clear one. I figured that part out. We need to tell the king. No. Mira stopped. Excuse me? If I run to Kael every time someone tries to scare me, I'm just proving them right, that I'm weak, that I need constant protection. Alara met her eyes. I need to handle this myself. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Mira looked like she wanted to argue. Then she sighed. You're as stubborn as he is. Fine, but be smart about it. Whoever did this isn't playing. Neither am I. That night, Alara didn't sleep. She sat by her door, a practice dagger in her hand, waiting. Nothing happened. The next night, same thing. On the third night, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. Someone was coming. Alara pressed herself against the wall beside the door, her heart hammering. The footsteps stopped right outside. The door handle turned. Alara waited until the door cracked open, then slammed her shoulder into it. The wood crashed into whoever was on the other side, and she heard a grunt of pain. She yanked the door open fully and found herself face to face with a young warrior she vaguely recognized from the training yard. He was holding another dead bird. You, Alara said, her voice shaking with anger and adrenaline. It was you. The warrior's eyes widened. He tried to back away. Alara followed, the dagger raised. Why? You don't belong here, he stammered. You're making us weak. Who sent you, Marcus? The warrior said nothing, but his eyes flicked down the hallway. Alara didn't think, she just moved. She ran past him, down the corridor, following the direction of his gaze. At the end of the hall, a door was closing. She caught it before it latched and pushed through. Inside was a small storage room, and standing in the center, looking far too calm, was Marcus. Alara, he said, what a surprise. You've been leaving those things at my door. Have I? He tilted his head. Can you prove it? Your lackey just tried to deliver another one. Kids these days, no discipline. Marcus stepped closer. But he's not wrong. You don't belong here, and the longer you stay, the more danger you put everyone in. How? By existing? By distracting the king. He's got enough problems without adding a wolfless omega to the list. Marcus's voice dropped. Leave, tonight, before something worse than a dead bird shows up at your door. No. Then you're stupider than you look. Maybe, but I'm not running because you're scared. Marcus's expression hardened. I'm not scared. I'm practical, and practically speaking, you're a liability that's going to get someone killed. Then maybe they shouldn't be so weak. The words were out before Alara could stop them. Marcus moved fast, faster than she expected. His hand closed around her throat, slamming her against the wall. You little... The door exploded inward. Kael stood in the doorway, his eyes already glowing gold. Marcus released Alara immediately, stepping back. My king, I was just threatening her. Kael's voice was layered, inhuman. The beast was close to the surface. I heard. It wasn't... Get out, now, before I forget you've served me for 10 years. Marcus hesitated. Then he left, moving quickly. The door slammed behind him. Kael turned to Alara, his eyes still glowing. Are you hurt? I'm fine. You're not fine. He had his hands on you. I can handle... Stop saying that. Kael's voice cracked. Stop acting like you have to face everything alone. Because I do. If I don't, everyone here will think I'm just using you for protection. That I'm weak. You're not weak. Tell them that. Alara's throat ached where Marcus had grabbed her. Tell Marcus. Tell all the warriors who look at me like I'm garbage. Because I'm tired of proving myself to people who've already decided I'm worthless. Kael stared at her for a long moment. Then he crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. Alara stiffened, surprised. You're not worthless, he said quietly, and anyone who thinks otherwise will answer to me. Despite everything, Alara felt tears prick her eyes. She buried her face against his chest, breathing in the smell of leather and steel and something uniquely him. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. I don't want to be afraid all the time. Then let me help. He pulled back, looking down at her. I can't fight your battles for you, but I can stand beside you while you fight them, if you'll let me. Elara looked up at him, this man who was supposed to be a monster, who'd shown her more kindness than anyone in her life. Okay, she whispered. His arms tightened around her, and for just a moment the world felt a little less hostile. The next morning, Kael called a gathering. Every warrior, every servant, every person who lived within the stronghold walls was summoned to the courtyard. Elara stood beside Kael on the raised platform, acutely aware of every eye on her. Kael's voice rang out clear and cold. There's been a problem. Someone in this stronghold has been threatening Elara, leaving dead animals at her door, trying to scare her into leaving. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I don't care who it was, Kael continued. I don't care why they thought it was acceptable. But I'm making this clear right now. Elara is under my protection. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. Anyone who harms her will wish they'd never been born. Marcus stood in the crowd, his face carved from stone. But more than that, Kael said, she's proven herself. She trains every day. She fights even though she has no wolf. She faces contempt and mockery and keeps showing up. His hand found Elara's. That takes more courage than most of you will ever have. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. From this moment forward, Elara is not a guest. She's not a prisoner. She's a member of this pack, with all the rights and protections that come with it. He looked directly at Marcus. Anyone who disagrees can challenge me. Right here. Right now. Silence. No one moved. Good, Kael said. Get back to work. The crowd dispersed slowly, still murmuring. Marcus caught Elara's eye as he left. His expression was unreadable, but she saw the calculation there. This wasn't over. But for now, she'd won a small victory. That night, the beast came early. Elara heard the roar from her room and ran without thinking. By the time she reached the iron door, Kael was already shifting, his body convulsing, his humanity slipping away. She didn't hesitate. She ran to him, her hands finding his face. Kael, look at me. The beast's eyes, gold and wild, locked onto hers. I'm here, she said. I'm not leaving. Stay with me. The transformation slowed, stopped. Kael gasped, his body shaking. How do you do that? I don't know, but we'll figure it out together. He pulled her close, his breathing ragged. I'm afraid I'll hurt you one day, when the beast takes over completely. You won't. You don't know that. I do. She pulled back to look at him. Because even when you're the beast, you recognize me. You go quiet when I'm near. That means some part of you is still there, still choosing me. His hand came up to cup her face. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. He laughed, rough and broken and real. Worst decision I ever made, taking you that night. Liar. Best decision, he corrected quietly. Best decision I ever made. And when he kissed her, it felt like a promise neither of them could quite put into words yet. But it was there, real and growing and dangerous in all the best ways. Over the following weeks, things shifted, slowly, painfully. Some warriors began to nod when Elara passed. A few even offered training tips. The servants stopped whispering when she entered rooms. But there were still those who watched her with suspicion. Still those who waited for her to fail. Marcus was the worst. He never threatened her openly again, but she could feel his eyes on her, watching, waiting. One afternoon, Elara was walking back from the training yard when she heard shouting from the main hall. She shouldn't have gone to investigate, should have minded her own business. But curiosity won out. She slipped inside and found Kael in a heated argument with 3 alphas she didn't recognize. They wore different pack insignias, visiting dignitaries maybe. Can't keep ignoring the alliances. One of them was saying, the southern packs are getting restless. They want assurances. They'll get assurances when I'm ready to give them, Kael said. And the Omega? What about her? Elara froze. What about her? Kael's voice was dangerous. Rumors are spreading. They say you've taken a wolfless Omega as a companion, that the curse is making you weak, sentimental. Watch your next words carefully. We're not your enemies, Draven, but the other packs are watching. If they think you're compromised, they'll test you, and if you fail that test, your territories won't be the only ones that suffer. Kael was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Get out." Kael, "Get out." The alphas left, muttering among themselves. Alara slipped away before Kael could see her, her mind racing. She was becoming a political problem, not just for the stronghold, but for Kael's entire rule. That night, she found herself standing on the battlements, staring out at the dark mountains. Mira found her there. "You heard," Mira said. "How do you always know?" "Because I pay attention." Mira leaned against the wall beside her. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. If I leave, I prove them right, that I was just a distraction, that I didn't belong. But if I stay, I keep causing problems for KL. Life's full of problems. The question is whether you're worth the trouble." Mira looked at her. "Are you?" "I want to be." "Then be. Stop waiting for permission. Stop worrying about what everyone thinks. Decide what you want and fight for it." "What if I want something impossible?" "Like what?" "Like being with him. Really with him. Not as a secret or a liability, but as an equal." Mira was quiet for a moment, then she smiled, rare and genuine. "Then I'd say you've got your work cut out for you. But impossible things happen every day in this place." She left Alara alone with her thoughts, and as the moon rose, cold and bright, Alara made a decision. She wasn't leaving. She wasn't hiding. She was going to fight for her place here, even if it killed her. 3 nights later, everything changed. Alara woke to the sound of breaking glass. She sat up, disoriented, and saw smoke curling under her door. Fire. She jumped out of bed, grabbed her robe, and ran to the door. The handle was hot. She wrapped her hand in fabric and yanked it open. The hallway was filled with smoke. Flames licked at the walls, spreading fast. "Fire!" she screamed. "Everyone out!" She ran down the corridor, pounding on doors, making sure people were awake. Servants stumbled out coughing. Some helped others. Some just ran. Alara reached the end of the hall and found a door that wouldn't open, locked from the inside. "Anyone in there?" she shouted. A child's voice answered. "I can't open it." Alara's heart seized. She threw her shoulder against the door. Once. Twice. On the 3rd try, the lock gave and she stumbled inside. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, stood crying in the corner. "Come on," Alara said, scooping her up. "We have to go." She ran back into the hallway. The flames had spread. The way she'd come was blocked. She turned and ran the other way, the child clinging to her neck. The smoke was thick, choking. Alara's eyes burned. She couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Then a hand grabbed her arm. "Kale." His face was covered in soot, his eyes streaming, but he was there. "This way," he said, pulling her toward a side passage she hadn't known existed. They burst out into fresh air, gasping and coughing. The child was crying but unharmed. Alara handed her to one of the servants. Kale turned to her, his hands checking her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." "What happened?" "Someone set the fire. Deliberately." His eyes were hard. "And I'm going to find out who." It took hours to get the fire under control. By the time the sun rose, an entire wing of the stronghold was charred and ruined. Miraculously, no one had died. A few injuries, some smoke inhalation, but everyone had made it out, because Alara had woken them. Kale gathered everyone in the courtyard, his expression carved from ice. "Someone tried to burn us alive tonight," he said. "Someone in this stronghold. Someone who thought they could get away with murder." He let that sink in. "I will find them, and when I do, they will pray for death." His voice was lethal. "But first, I want to say something. Alara saved lives tonight. She woke people, broke down a door to rescue a child, risked her own life to make sure everyone got out." The crowd murmured. "So when I hear people say she doesn't belong here, that she's useless, that she's a liability..." Kale's eyes swept the courtyard. "Remember tonight. Remember who ran into the fire while others ran out." He found Alara in the crowd and held her gaze. "She belongs here more than most of you." And for the first time since she'd arrived, Alara saw people looking at her with something other than contempt. She saw respect. It was a small shift, fragile, easily broken, but it was there. Later, as they sat in Kael's chambers, one of the few rooms untouched by the fire, Alara asked the question that had been haunting her. Do you think it was Marcus? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Kael's jaw was tight. This has gone too far. What if it wasn't him? What if it's someone else? Someone we haven't even considered? Then we'll deal with them too. He looked at her. You should have stayed in your room, waited for help. A child was trapped. You could have died. So could she. Kael exhaled hard. You're going to give me gray hair. You already have some. And whose fault is that? Despite everything, Alara smiled. Yours, for keeping me around. He pulled her close, and they sat there in silence, listening to the sounds of the stronghold settling into an uneasy calm. Outside, in the shadows, someone watched the burned wing with satisfaction. The fire had failed to kill anyone, but it had served its purpose. It had shown that the Omega was vulnerable, and vulnerabilities could be exploited. The real attack was still coming, and when it came, it would be far worse than fire. The investigation into the fire took 3 days. 3 days of interrogations, of checking alibis, of watching everyone with suspicion. The stronghold felt different now, tense, fractured, like a rope pulled too tight. Kael barely slept. Alara saw him everywhere, questioning guards, inspecting the burned wing, speaking in hushed tones with his most trusted warriors. His eyes had dark circles beneath them, and the beast was closer to the surface than she'd ever seen. On the 4th morning, he found her in the training yard. We need to talk, he said. She followed him to his private chambers, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Inside, Mira was waiting, along with 2 warriors Alara recognized as Kael's inner circle. What's going on? Alara asked. Kael closed the door. We found evidence, oil-soaked rags hidden in one of the storage rooms, flint and steel. Whoever set the fire planned it carefully. Did you find who did it? Not yet, but we found something else. He gestured to one of the warriors, who stepped forward holding a small cloth bundle. The warrior unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a carved stone medallion, black, etched with symbols that made Alara's eyes hurt to look at. What is that, she asked. A curse anchor, Mira said quietly. Very old magic. Very forbidden. It's used to amplify curses, make them uncontrollable. Alara's blood ran cold. Someone's trying to trigger Kael's curse, not just trigger it, weaponize it. Kael's jaw was tight. If someone used that near me during a transformation, the beast wouldn't just be violent, it would be unstoppable. I wouldn't be able to tell friend from enemy. I'd kill everyone. The room went silent. Where did you find it? Alara asked. Hidden in the wall near your room. The words hit her like a physical blow. My room? Why? Because you're the one who calms the beast, Mira said. If they can separate you from him, or worse, make you a target during his transformation, there's no one to pull him back. Alara sat down heavily. So the fire wasn't meant to kill everyone. It was meant to create chaos. Separate us. That's what we think, Kael said. And there's more. The Blood Moon ceremony is in 5 days. What's that? An ancient ritual. Once every decade, all the major alphas gather to renew their oaths of alliance. It's mandatory. I can't skip it without losing all political standing. He paused. And it happens during the full moon, when the curse is strongest. So someone's planning to use the ceremony to trigger the curse, Alara said, in front of all the alphas, to make you look like a monster who can't control himself. And to eliminate potential rivals in the chaos, one of the warriors added. It's brilliant, really. Evil, but brilliant. Kael's hands clenched into fists. I won't give them the satisfaction. We're canceling the ceremony. You can't, Mira said. If you cancel without cause, the other packs will see it as weakness. Or worse, an insult. You'll start a war. Then what do you suggest? We go? Alara said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. We go to the ceremony, but we're ready. We know someone's going to try to use the curse anchor, so we find it first. Destroy it. She looked at Kyle. And I stay close to you the entire time. Absolutely not, Kyle said immediately. It's too dangerous. It's dangerous either way. At least this way we're in control. If something goes wrong, then we deal with it, together. She stood, moving to stand in front of him. You said we were partners. Partners don't run when things get hard. Kale stared at her, conflict clear in his eyes. Then he turned to the others. Give us the room. They left quickly. Once alone, Kyle pulled Alara close, his forehead resting against hers. I can't lose you. You won't. You don't know that. If the beast takes over completely, if I can't recognize you, you will. You always do. She cupped his face in her hands. I trust you, even when you don't trust yourself. That's a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. He kissed her, hard and desperate and full of fear. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. If this goes wrong, he whispered, if I hurt you, you won't, and I'll prove it. The days before the ceremony passed in a blur of preparation. Warriors trained relentlessly. Scouts searched every inch of the stronghold for more curse anchors, and Alara spent every spare moment with Kyle, anchoring him when the beast got too close. But despite their efforts, they found nothing. No more anchors, no suspects, no evidence pointing to who was behind the attacks. They're being careful, Mira said on the night before the ceremony. Professional. This isn't some angry warrior acting alone. This is coordinated. Then who? Alara asked. Who benefits from Kyle losing control? Anyone who wants his territories. Anyone who wants to prove he's unfit to rule. Anyone who's afraid of what he represents. Mira's expression was grim. That's a long list. The ceremony was held at a neutral site, an ancient stone circle built into the side of a mountain, surrounded by forest on all sides. By tradition, each alpha could bring only a small guard, no armies, no weapons beyond what they could carry. It was supposed to be sacred ground, but Alara had learned that sacred didn't mean safe. They arrived at dusk. The stone circle was already filling with wolves from a dozen different packs. Alphas in formal armor, betas carrying their banners, omegas dressed in ceremonial garb. Alara felt every eye turn to her as she walked beside Kyle. The whispers started immediately. That's her, the wolfless one. What's she doing here? He brought his pet to a sacred ceremony? Alara kept her chin up and her hand steady in Kyle's. An older alpha approached, a woman with silver hair and more scars than skin. Kale Draven, I heard rumors you'd gone soft. Didn't believe them until now. Alpha Lyris, Kyle said evenly. Still charming as ever, and still alive, which is more than I expected. Lyris's sharp eyes moved to Alara. So this is the Omega everyone's talking about. This is Alara, Kyle said. My partner. The word partner caused a ripple of shock through the nearby wolves. Lyris raised an eyebrow. Bold? Stupid, but bold. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. Be careful, girl. There are people here who'd slit your throat just to watch him bleed. I know, Alara said quietly. Lyris studied her for a moment, then nodded. Maybe you're not as soft as you look. She walked away. The ceremony began at moonrise. The alphas formed a circle, each standing at one of the ancient stones. Kyle took his place, and Alara stood just behind him, as was traditional for bonded partners. Except they weren't bonded, not officially, but no one challenged it. An elder stepped into the center of the circle, beginning the ritual chants. The words were old, guttural, spoken in a language Alara didn't understand. She felt the power in them, though, felt the way the air grew heavy, the way the stones seemed to hum. And she felt something else, a wrongness. She scanned the crowd, looking for anything out of place, but everyone seemed focused on the ceremony. Then she saw him. Davrin. He stood at the edge of the circle, partially hidden behind a group of betas. His eyes were fixed on Kyle, and his hand was inside his coat. Alara's heart stopped. She stepped forward, trying to catch Kale's attention without disrupting the ceremony, but before she could move, Davrin pulled his hand out. In it was a small black stone, the curse anchor. Time seemed to slow. Davern crushed the stone. The sound was like thunder inside Alara's skull. Kale roared, his body convulsed, his eyes flaring gold. The transformation was instant and violent. Bones cracked, muscles tore and reformed, his humanity stripped away in seconds. The beast had arrived. Chaos erupted. Alphas drew weapons. Wolves scattered. Someone screamed. The beast that had been Kyle turned, his eyes wild and unseen, and launched himself at the nearest person. An alpha went down, blood spraying. "Kale!" Alara screamed. But he couldn't hear her. The curse had him completely. He tore through the circle like a storm, claws ripping, teeth flashing. Warriors tried to stop him. He threw them aside like dolls. Alara ran toward him, ignoring the shouts telling her to get back. She had to reach him, had to anchor him before he killed everyone. But someone grabbed her from behind, Marcus. "Let him burn!" Marcus hissed in her ear. "This is what he deserves, what they all deserve." Alara slammed her elbow back into his ribs. He grunted, but didn't let go. "You were part of this," she gasped. "You and Davern." "Smart girl. Took you long enough." He dragged her backward. "The king was always going to fall. We just helped speed things along." "Why?" "Because monsters don't get to rule. Because he's dangerous. Because someone had to do something before he destroyed us all." Marcus's voice was cold. "And you were the perfect catalyst. The weakness we needed to exploit." Alara's mind raced. She couldn't break his grip, couldn't reach Kael. Then she remembered. The dagger. She'd hidden a small blade in her boot just in case. She twisted, bringing her leg up. Her fingers closed around the hilt, and she drove the blade into Marcus's thigh. He screamed and released her. Alara ran. The beast was in the center of the circle now, surrounded by warriors trying to contain him. Blood covered the ground. Bodies lay motionless. And then Alara saw Davern moving toward Kael from behind, a sword raised. "No!" she shouted. She threw herself between them. The blade was already falling. Alara felt the impact before the pain, a sharp, burning sensation in her side. She gasped, stumbling. Davern's eyes widened. "You stupid!" The beast stopped. Everything stopped. Kael's glowing eyes locked onto Alara. She was bleeding, falling, her hand pressed to her side. And something shifted. The gold in his eyes flickered, dimmed. Alara hit the ground hard, her vision blurring, but she kept her eyes on Kael. "It's me," she whispered. "It's just me." The beast roared, not in rage this time, but in anguish. And then he was changing back. The transformation reversed. Claws retracted, fur receded, bones shifted. Kael collapsed to his knees, human again, his eyes fixed on Alara. "No," he breathed. "No, no, no." He crawled to her, his hands shaking as he pressed them against her wound. Blood poured between his fingers. "Stay with me," he said, his voice breaking. "Alara, stay with me." "I'm okay," she lied. The pain was getting worse, spreading. "You're not okay. You're—" His voice caught. "Why did you do that?" "Because you would have done the same for me." Around them, the circle was silent. Every alpha, every warrior, every wolf stood frozen, watching. Lyra stepped forward slowly. The beast stopped. It recognized her. "Impossible," someone muttered. "I saw it," another voice said. She calmed him, brought him back. Kael didn't hear any of it. He lifted Alara carefully, cradling her against his chest. "I need a healer. Now." Mira appeared, her face pale. "The nearest one is an hour away." "Then we have an hour." Kael's voice was steel. "Move." He carried Alara out of the circle, and his warriors fell in around him. Behind them, Marcus was being restrained. Davern had disappeared into the chaos. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was the woman bleeding in Kael's arms. The woman who'd just proven something everyone thought impossible, that love could tame a beast, that trust could break a curse, that the girl no one wanted was the only one who could save them all. They rode hard through the night. Alara drifted in and out of consciousness, her head resting against Kael's chest. She could hear his heartbeat, fast and frightened. "Stay awake," he kept saying. "Keep your eyes open." "Tired," She mumbled. I know, but you can't sleep, not yet. Why not? Because I'm not ready to lose you. She tried to smile. Not going anywhere. You better not. When they finally reached the stronghold, the healer was waiting. An old woman with steady hands and sharp eyes. She examined the wound and shook her head. It's deep, missed major organs, but she's lost a lot of blood. Can you save her? Kael's voice was barely controlled. I can try, but you need to leave. I work better without an audience. I'm not leaving her. Then stand in the corner and stay quiet. Kael moved to the corner, his fists clenched, his eyes never leaving Alara. The healer worked through the night, cleaning the wound, stitching, applying poultices that smelled like earth and herbs. Alara screamed once when the healer cauterized part of the wound. Kael moved before he could stop himself, but Mira held him back. Let her work, Mira said firmly. By dawn, the healer stepped back, wiping blood from her hands. She'll live, but she needs rest. Weeks of it. No training, no stress, just healing. Kael exhaled a breath he'd been holding for hours. Thank you. The healer packed her tools. She's strong, stronger than she looks. She'll pull through. After she left, Kael moved to sit beside Alara's bed. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow but steady. He took her hand carefully, as if she might break. I almost lost you, he whispered. I almost killed you. Her eyes fluttered open. But you didn't. I could have. If you hadn't, but I did. She squeezed his hand weakly. And you came back, just like I knew you would. You're insane. Probably. Her eyes drifted closed again. But I'm your kind of insane. Despite everything, Kael smiled. Yeah, you are. He stayed beside her bed for 3 days. Didn't leave, didn't sleep, just watched her breathe, making sure she was still alive. On the 4th day, she woke up properly. You look terrible, she said. You got stabbed. I get to look terrible. Fair point. She tried to sit up and winced. Kael helped her, adjusting the pillows. The healer said you need to rest. I've been resting for days. You almost died. But I didn't. She met his eyes. What happened after I passed out? Marcus confessed, said he and Davern had been planning this for months. Davern fled during the chaos, but we'll find him. Kael's expression darkened. Marcus is in the dungeons awaiting execution. And the other alphas? They saw what happened. Saw you bring me back. Saw that the curse isn't as uncontrollable as everyone thought. He paused. Some are calling you a miracle, others are calling you dangerous. But none of them are calling you weak anymore. Alara processed that. So what now? Now you heal, and when you're strong enough, we deal with the fallout. What kind of fallout? The kind where half the packs want to study you like a specimen, and the other half want to eliminate you as a threat. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. But I won't let either happen. You can't protect me from everyone. Watch me. She smiled despite the pain, still as stubborn as ever. Look who's talking. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Alara spoke. Kael, when the beast took over, what did it feel like? He was quiet for a long time. Like drowning, like being trapped inside my own body, screaming to get out but unable to move, unable to control anything. His voice cracked. And then I saw you, bleeding, falling, and something inside me just snapped. The beast didn't want to hurt you. It wanted to protect you, so it let me back in. So the beast isn't separate from you, Alara said slowly. It's part of you. It just needed the same thing you needed. What's that? A reason to care. Kael stared at her. You're saying the curse isn't just about control. It's about connection. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just a wolfless omega making guesses. She squeezed his hand. But I know that when you have something to fight for, you're stronger than any curse. He pulled her close, carefully, mindful of her injury, and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I love you, he said. I don't know when it happened, but I do. Alara's heart swelled. I love you too, Even when you're being an overprotective nightmare. He laughed. I'm going to be so much worse now. I'm counting on it. 2 weeks later, Alara was strong enough to walk. She ventured out of Kael's chambers for the first time, expecting whispers and stares. What she got instead was nods of respect. Warriors who'd mocked her now stepped aside to let her pass. Servants who'd ignored her now offered help. Even Marcus's former allies kept their distance, their expressions wary. She found Mira in the kitchens, overseeing the preparation of evening meals. You're up, Mira said, smiling. How do you feel? Like I got stabbed, but better. Good, because you've got visitors. Who? See for yourself. Alara walked to the courtyard and found 3 alphas waiting. Lyris was among them, along with 2 others she recognized from the ceremony. Alara Voss? Lyris said formally. We've come to speak with you. About what? About what you did. What you are. Lyris gestured to the others. We've consulted with the oldest among us, the ones who remember the ancient ways, and we believe you're something that hasn't existed in generations. You're a conduit, one of the other alphas interrupted. A bridge between wolf and human, between curse and cure. You don't have a wolf because you're something else entirely, something stronger. Alara's breath caught. What does that mean? It means, Lyris said, that you're one of the rarest beings in our world, and it means you're in more danger than you know. There are people who will hunt you for what you are, who will try to use you, control you, or kill you, the 3rd alpha added. That's comforting, Alara said dryly. Lyris smiled. But it also means you have allies, real ones. We've seen what you can do, and we're willing to stand with Kael and with you, if you'll have us. Before Alara could respond, Kael appeared. The answer is yes. We'll have you. Lyris nodded. Good, because war is coming. Davrin is still out there, and he won't stop until you're both dead. He's building an army, calling in favors, spreading lies about what happened at the ceremony. Let him, Kael said. We'll be ready. Will you? Lyris looked between them. Because this won't be a small fight. This will be a war that decides the future of every pack in these territories. Then we'll win it, Alara said quietly, together. Lyris studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled. You've got spine, girl. I'll give you that. After the alphas left, Kael turned to Alara. Are you sure about this? If we fight, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything. She took his hand. Besides, where else would I go? This is home now. Even with everything that's happened? Especially because of everything that's happened. She looked up at the stronghold, scarred, battered, but still standing. This place made me strong, made me real. I'm not giving that up without a fight. Kael pulled her close. Then we fight, and we win. That night, as the moon rose full and heavy, Alara stood beside Kael on the battlements. Below them, warriors trained, scouts prepared. The stronghold buzzed with purpose. Do you think we can actually do this? Alara asked. Win against an army? I don't know, Kael admitted. But I know we have something Davrin doesn't. What's that? A reason to fight that's bigger than revenge or power. He looked at her. We're fighting for something real. For a future where strength doesn't mean cruelty. Where being different doesn't mean being worthless. That's a nice dream. Then let's make it real. And as they stood there together, the stronghold below them preparing for war, Alara felt something she'd never felt before. Hope. Real, solid, unshakable hope. She didn't know if they'd win, didn't know if they'd even survive. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't the girl no one wanted anymore. She was the woman who'd changed everything, and she was ready to fight for every inch of the life she'd built, no matter what it cost. The war came faster than anyone expected. 3 weeks after the ceremony, scouts reported movement on the eastern border. An army, moving with purpose. Flying Davrin's banner, a wolf's head split in half, symbolizing the division he'd caused. Kael called a war council immediately. The great hall was packed. Alphas who'd pledged their support, warriors from allied packs, and Alara, standing at Kael's right hand where everyone could see her. How many? Kael asked the scout. 200. Maybe more. They're recruiting as they move, promising territory and power to anyone who joins. Lyris leaned forward. 200 is manageable. We can match that. It's not just numbers, another alpha said. Davern's got support from the southern packs, the ones who think Kael's curse makes him unstable. Then we prove them wrong, Kael said flatly. We show them that control isn't about suppressing the beast. It's about mastering it. And how exactly do we do that? Someone asked. All eyes turned to Alara. She felt the weight of their expectations like a physical thing. They wanted her to have answers, to be the miracle that saved them, but she was just as lost as they were. I don't know, she admitted. What I did at the ceremony, bringing Kael back, I can't explain it. I just felt something, a connection, and I pulled on it. Can you do it again? Lyris asked. I think so, but I've only done it when Kael was already transformed. I don't know if I can prevent the transformation entirely. That's not what we need, Kael said. We don't need to prevent it. We need to control it, use it strategically. The room murmured. You want to weaponize the curse? Someone asked, incredulous. I want to stop running from it, stop treating it like a weakness. Kael's voice was steel. The beast is part of me. It's powerful, dangerous, and it's time I stopped being afraid of it. Alara touched his arm gently. Are you sure? If something goes wrong, then you'll bring me back, like you always do. He covered her hand with his. I trust you. The plan was risky. Suicidal, some called it, but it was the only advantage they had. Over the next week, Alara worked with Kael to understand the connection between them. They spent hours in the training yard, pushing the boundaries of the curse, testing how far he could transform before losing control. It was brutal work. The first few attempts ended with Kael collapsing, exhausted and shaking, the beast too close to the surface. But slowly, they learned. Alara discovered she could sense when the transformation was coming, a change in the air, a pressure behind her eyes. And when she focused, when she reached out with that strange power she still didn't understand, she could anchor him, keep him tethered to his humanity even as the beast took over. It's like you're a lifeline, Mira observed one evening, watching them train. He can go as deep as he needs to, knowing he can follow your light back. That's poetic, Alara said, breathing hard. But it feels more like grabbing a rabid wolf by the throat and hoping it doesn't bite. Same thing, really. By the end of the week, Kael could shift partially, claws, enhanced strength, heightened senses, without losing himself completely. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes he slipped too far, and Alara had to pull him back. But it was progress. Real, tangible progress. This could work, Lyris said after watching a training session. If you can maintain control during battle, it changes everything. Big if, Alara muttered. You've done bigger, Lyris said with a slight smile. You brought a cursed king back from the edge. This is just logistics. Despite her exhaustion, Alara laughed. You have a strange definition of logistics. The night before Davern's army was expected to arrive, Alara couldn't sleep. She stood on the battlements, watching the horizon, trying not to think about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. Kael found her there. You should be resting, he said. So should you. I tried, couldn't. He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Nervous? Terrified. Good. That means you're smart. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Alara spoke. What happens if I can't bring you back? If the curse takes over completely and I'm not strong enough? Then you run. Get as far away as possible. I won't. Alara, I won't, she repeated firmly. I'm not leaving you. Not for anything. Kael turned to face her, his hands coming up to cup her face. You're the most stubborn, reckless, impossible woman I've ever met. I know, and I love you for it. I know that too. He kissed her, soft and desperate and full of everything they couldn't say. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. If I don't make it through tomorrow, you will. But if I don't, I need you to know, you saved me, not just from the curse, from myself. You made me want to be better, to be more than just a monster everyone feared. Alara's vision blurred. You were never a monster. You were just someone who'd been hurt so badly you forgot what it felt like to be whole. And you reminded me. Because you did the same for me. She pressed her forehead to his. We're going to survive this, both of us. And then we're going to build something better than what came before. Promise? Promise. They held each other until dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. The army arrived at midday. Elara watched from the walls as they spread across the valley below, a dark mass of wolves, armed and angry. Devrin rode at the front, his banner held high. Kael stood beside her, his armor buckled, his expression carved from stone. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They descended to the courtyard where their own forces waited. 200 warriors, maybe less, but every one of them loyal. Kael addressed them, his voice carrying across the assembled wolves. Today, we fight for more than territory, more than power. We fight for the right to be ourselves, flawed, broken, dangerous. His eyes swept the crowd. They say I'm cursed. They're right. They say I'm a monster. Also right. But I'm a monster who chooses who I protect, and I choose you, all of you. A cheer rose up, and I'm not fighting alone. He gestured to Alara. This woman has proven that strength comes in forms we don't expect. That power isn't just about claws and teeth. She's braver than most warriors I've known, and she's standing with us. Another cheer, louder this time. Alara felt her face heat. She wasn't used to this, being seen, being valued. Part of her still wanted to shrink back into the shadows, but she didn't. She stepped forward and spoke, her voice smaller than Kael's, but clear. I'm not a warrior. I'm not an alpha. I don't have a wolf. But I'm here because this place gave me something I never had before. A home. People who see me as more than broken. And I'll fight for that. With everything I have. The warriors stamped their feet in approval. Then the gates opened, and they marched out to meet Davrin's army. The two forces faced each other across 100 yards of open ground. Davrin rode forward, flanked by his lieutenants. Kael met him halfway, with Alara at his side. Cousin, Davrin said, his smile sharp. Still alive. Impressive. No thanks to you, Alara replied coldly. You should have died at the ceremony. Would have made everything simpler. Davrin's eyes moved to Kael. I'm giving you one chance. Step down. Surrender your territories. And I'll let you live out your days in exile. Generous, Kael said dryly. But no. Then you'll die here, along with everyone stupid enough to follow you. Maybe. Or maybe you will. Kael's eyes began to glow faint gold. Want to find out? Davrin's smile faltered. You can't control it. Everyone knows that. Everyone's wrong. Before Davrin could respond, Kael shifted. But not like before. This was controlled, deliberate. His body expanded, claws extending, muscles rippling. His eyes blazed gold, but his expression remained focused, aware. Human and beast merged. Davrin's horse reared, spooked. The wolves behind him backed up, fear rippling through their ranks. Still think I can't control it? Kael's voice was layered, inhuman, but still his own. Davrin recovered quickly. Tricks. It won't last. The curse will take you eventually. Then let's see who falls first. The battle began with a roar. Davrin's forces charged. Kael's warriors met them head-on. Steel clashed. Wolves howled. Blood sprayed across the ground. Alara stayed close to Kael, just like they'd planned. She could feel the curse pulling at him, trying to drag him under. But she held the connection firm, her entire focus on keeping him anchored. Kael fought like a force of nature. Faster than any wolf, stronger than any alpha. He tore through Davrin's front line, his warriors following in his wake. But there were so many. For every enemy that fell, 2 more took their place. Alara saw warriors she'd trained with go down, saw blood and chaos and death on all sides. She wanted to help, to fight, but she couldn't. Her only job was to keep Kael human enough to recognize friend from foe. And it was taking everything she had. The connection between them strained. She could feel the beast pushing against her hold, hungry for violence, for freedom. Kael, she gasped. You need to pull back. Can't. Not yet. You're too far gone. I'm fine. But he wasn't. She could feel him slipping. Then Davern appeared, sword drawn, cutting through the chaos toward them. This ends now, Davern snarled. Kyle turned to face him, and for a moment, Alara saw nothing but beast in his eyes. She pulled harder on the connection. Kyle, stay with me. His eyes cleared slightly. I'm here. Davern attacked. The two men clashed with brutal force, Kale's claws against Davern's blade. Neither gave ground. Alara watched, her heart in her throat, maintaining the connection even as exhaustion dragged at her. Then she saw movement from the corner of her eye. One of Davern's warriors circling around, sword raised, aimed at Kale's unprotected back. Alara didn't think. She threw herself forward, a dagger she'd grabbed from a fallen warrior clutched in her hand. The blade caught the attacker's sword arm. Not a killing blow, but enough to make him drop the weapon. He turned on her, fury in his eyes. Alara raised the dagger, her hands shaking. She'd trained, but training wasn't the same as real combat. The warrior lunged. Alara dodged, barely. His fist caught her shoulder, spinning her around. She fell hard, the dagger flying from her grip. He loomed over her, reaching for his backup blade. Then Kyle was there. He grabbed the warrior by the throat and threw him 20 feet. The man didn't get up. Kale turned to Alara, and for a second she saw pure beast in his eyes, protective, violent, possessive. Mine, he growled. Yours, she agreed, breathless. The word seemed to calm something in him. The gold in his eyes dimmed slightly, but the distraction cost them. Davern's blade caught Kale across the ribs, drawing blood. Kale roared and backhanded Davern so hard he flew backward into his own warriors. Then the beast surged forward completely. Alara felt the connection snap. Kale's humanity disappeared, buried under pure animal instinct. He turned on everything, friend and foe alike. No, Alara whispered. No, no, no! She scrambled to her feet, ignoring her bruised shoulder, and ran toward him. Kyle! He didn't hear her. He was lost. She pushed through the fighting, desperate to reach him. A warrior grabbed her arm. She elbowed him in the face and kept running. Finally, she reached Kyle. He was in the center of a circle of bodies, blood covering his claws, his eyes wild. He turned toward her and didn't recognize her. Alara's heart stopped. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading. The beast with no humanity left. Kale growled, low and threatening. Alara raised her hand slowly. It's me. It's Alara. He didn't respond, just watched her like prey. She took a step closer. I know you're in there. I know you can hear me. Another growl, another step. You told me once that I was yours, remember? His head tilted, confused. You said if you took me, I'd be yours. Not Davern's, not anyone else's. Yours. Her voice shook but held. Well, it works both ways. You're mine too, and I'm not letting you go. She was close enough now to touch him. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and placed her hand on his chest. The moment they connected, she felt it. The bond between them frayed, but still there. She grabbed hold and pulled with everything she had left, not forcing him back, just showing him the way, reminding him who he was. Come back to me, she whispered. Please. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Kyle's eyes flickered, gold to gray, beast to man. He gasped, his body convulsing as the transformation reversed. When he collapsed, Alara caught him, both of them sinking to the ground. I've got you, she said. You're okay. I've got you. Around them, the battle had stopped. Both armies stood frozen, watching, because they'd seen something impossible. They'd seen the beast, the uncontrollable, murderous curse, choose to return. Choose humanity. Choose her. Davern staggered to his feet, blood running from a cut on his forehead. It doesn't matter. You're both finished. Look at you, exhausted, wounded. You can't win. Maybe not, Lyra said, stepping forward. She was bloodied but standing. But neither can you. Other alphas moved to stand beside her. Warriors from both sides, lowering their weapons. This is pointless, one of Davern's own lieutenants said. We came here for territory, for power. But all I see is death. Then you're a coward, Davern spat. No, I'm practical. The lieutenant threw down his sword. I won't die for your revenge. One by one, Davern's warriors began to surrender. Davern looked around, rage and disbelief warring on his face. You're all cowards. Traitors. They're survivors, Kael said, his voice rough. He stood slowly, Alara supporting him. They're choosing to live rather than die for a lost cause. This isn't over. Yes, Kael said quietly. It is. He raised his hand and his warriors moved forward, surrounding Davern. Davern's face twisted with hatred. You think you've won. You've proven nothing. You're still cursed, still broken, still a monster. You're right, Kael said. I am all those things, but I'm also more than that, because she showed me how to be. He looked at Alara, and something in his expression made her chest tighten. She taught me that being broken doesn't mean being worthless. That strength isn't about being perfect. It's about choosing to keep fighting even when you're scared. He turned back to Davern. You'll never understand that, because you only see weakness where there's actually courage. Davern lunged one last time, a hidden knife in his hand. Kael caught his wrist easily and twisted. The knife fell. I could kill you, Kael said. Would be justified. But I'm not going to, because I'm trying to be better than what everyone expects. He shoved Davern toward his warriors. Lock him up. We'll decide his fate later. As Davern was dragged away, still screaming curses, the battlefield went quiet. The fighting was over. They'd won. Barely. Bloodily. At great cost. But they'd won. Alara looked around at the bodies, the wounded, the exhausted warriors on both sides. This wasn't a clean victory. Wasn't something to celebrate. It was survival. Brutal and ugly and real, but it was theirs. Lyris approached, limping slightly. That was insane. Which part? Kael asked. All of it, but especially the part where you willingly transformed in the middle of battle. She looked at Alara, and the part where you brought him back. Again. I almost didn't, Alara admitted. Her whole body was shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. For a second I thought I'd lost him. But you didn't, and everyone saw. Lyris gestured to the assembled wolves. You just changed everything. Proved the curse can be controlled. That the beast isn't an enemy, it's a tool. A dangerous tool, Kael said. All the best ones are. Lyris smiled tiredly. You've got a lot of explaining to do, a lot of politics to navigate. But you've earned the right to try. She walked away to check on her warriors. Kael turned to Alara. Are you hurt? Bruised, tired, but alive. She looked up at him. You? Same. He pulled her close despite the blood and dirt covering both of them. Thank you. For not giving up on me. I'll never give up on you. Even when I'm being an idiot? Especially then. He kissed her forehead, and they stood there together, surrounded by the aftermath of battle, holding each other up. Around them, warriors began the grim work of tending the wounded and honoring the dead. It would take days to clean up, weeks to heal, months to rebuild what had been broken. But for the first time since this all started, Alara felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. Not the absence of conflict, but the knowledge that she belonged here, that she'd fought for this place and earned her right to stay. She wasn't the girl no one wanted anymore. She was the woman who'd saved a king, who'd tamed a beast, who'd proven that love was stronger than any curse. That evening, as the sun set over the battlefield, Kael called another gathering. The warriors assembled, bloodied, exhausted, but alive. Kael stood before them, Alara at his side. Today we fought for our home, our freedom, our right to exist on our own terms. His voice carried across the crowd. Some of you fought because you believed in me, others because you had nowhere else to go, but all of you fought with courage. He paused, letting that sink in. I know I'm not a traditional king. I'm cursed. I'm dangerous. I make mistakes. He looked at Alara. But I'm trying to be better, to build something that's not based on fear or domination, and I can't do it alone. He turned back to the crowd. So I'm asking, not ordering, will you stand with me? Will you help me build something new? For a moment, silence. Then one warrior stepped forward, then another. Within seconds, the entire crowd was moving, surrounding Kael and Alara. Not kneeling, standing together, as equals. And in that moment, Alara knew they'd done more than win a battle. They'd started a revolution. The revolution started quietly, not with declarations or grand ceremonies, but with small changes that rippled outward like stones dropped in still water. The first change came 3 days after the battle, when Kael ordered the dungeons opened. Not for Davrin, he stayed locked up, awaiting judgment, but for the prisoners who'd been thrown in cells for minor infractions, for being too weak, for questioning orders, for not fitting the mold of what a wolf should be. Alara stood beside him as they walked out, blinking in the sunlight, confused and wary. "You're free," Kael told them. "No conditions, no debts. You want to stay, you stay. You want to leave, leave. But you're not prisoners anymore." One of them, a young man with a twisted leg that had never healed right, stared at Kael like he'd grown a second head. "Why?" "Because locking people up for being different is how we got into this mess in the first place." Kael glanced at Alara. "Someone taught me that strength comes in forms we don't expect. Time, I started believing it. Most of them stayed, some because they had nowhere else to go, others because for the first time they felt like they might actually belong." The second change came a week later when Alara proposed something that made even Lyris raise her eyebrows. "You want to do what?" Lyris asked. "Create a council," Alara repeated. "Representatives from different parts of the pack, not just alphas and warriors. Everyone, servants, healers, even omegas. That's not how packs work." "It's not how they've worked. Doesn't mean it can't change." Kael leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You realize this will undermine traditional power structures. A lot of alphas won't like it." "I know, but if we're really trying to build something different, we can't just change who's in charge. We have to change how power works." Alara met his eyes. "You said you wanted to be better. This is how." Lyris looked between them. "She's got a point. Dangerous point, but a point." "Dangerous how?" Kael asked. "Because if other packs see you giving power to omegas and servants, they'll see it as weakness. They'll test you. Let them," Kael said. "We'll be ready." He looked at Alara. "Do it. Form your council, but you're leading it." "Me?" "You started this revolution. Seems fair you see it through." Alara's heart hammered. "I don't know how to lead." "Neither did I when I became king. We'll figure it out together." The council's first meeting was chaos. 20 wolves crammed into a room meant for 10, all talking over each other, all with different opinions on what needed to change first. Alara sat at the head of the table, feeling completely out of her depth. "We need better food distribution," someone was saying. "No, we need more training for non-warriors. The real problem is housing. Half the lower quarters are still damaged from the fire. Can we talk about the fact that omegas still can't own property?" "Enough," Alara said quietly. No one heard her. "Enough," she repeated, louder this time. The room fell silent. Alara took a breath. "I know everyone has concerns, valid concerns, but we can't fix everything at once, so we're going to do this properly. One issue at a time, starting with immediate needs, then working our way to long-term changes." "Who put you in charge?" someone muttered. "The king did, and me, because someone has to be, and I'm willing to do the work." She looked around the table. "Anyone else want the job?" No one volunteered. "Thought so. Now, immediate needs, what can't wait?" Slowly, reluctantly, they began to work. It was messy. Arguments broke out. People stormed off, then came back. Compromises were made that satisfied no one completely, but moved things forward incrementally. By the end of the first month, they'd established food rationing that was actually fair, started repairs on the damaged quarters, and created a system for resolving disputes that didn't involve fighting. Small victories. But victories nonetheless. Kael watched from a distance, stepping in only when asked. And every night, when Alara collapsed into bed exhausted and frustrated, he was there. "This is harder than fighting," she complained one evening. Fighting's easy. Building something is hard. He brushed hair from her face. But you're doing it, actually changing things. Slowly, too slowly. There's so much wrong. Then fix it piece by piece. That's all anyone can do. She rolled over to face him. Do you think it's working? Really? I think people are talking who never had a voice before. I think warriors are training beside omegas without sneering. I think the stronghold feels different. He pulled her close. So yeah, it's working. But not everyone was happy with the changes. 2 months after the council formed, resistance began to crystallize. Not violent, not open rebellion, just quiet obstruction. Supplies that went missing, orders that got misunderstood. Warriors who showed up late to training, claiming they hadn't been informed. Alara knew who was behind it. A group of older warriors, alphas who'd served under Kael's father, who saw the new order as an insult to tradition. Their leader was a man named Gareth, grizzled, scarred, and utterly convinced that strength was the only thing that mattered. Alara confronted him in the training yard one morning. "We need to talk," she said. Gareth barely glanced at her. "I'm busy." "I'm not asking." That got his attention. He turned, his expression contemptuous. "What does the king's pet want?" The insult stung, but Alara kept her face neutral. "I want to know why you're sabotaging the council's decisions." "I'm not sabotaging anything." 3 supply shipments have gone to the wrong places. Training schedules keep getting mixed up, and somehow it's always decisions the council made that get disrupted. She stepped closer. "That's not coincidence." Gareth's lip curled. "Maybe if your council made better decisions, there wouldn't be problems. Or maybe if certain people stopped clinging to the old ways, we could actually move forward. The old ways kept us alive, kept us strong. What you're doing, giving power to weaklings, letting omegas have opinions, it's making us soft. Or it's making us better." "Better?" Gareth laughed harshly. "You're a wolfless omega who got lucky. You don't know what you're talking about. I know that the old ways almost got everyone killed. I know that treating people like they're worthless because they're different creates enemies inside your own walls. I know that real strength isn't about who can hit hardest. It's about who can survive, adapt, and build something that lasts." Gareth's expression darkened. "Pretty words. But when the next war comes, and it will, your council and your pretty ideas won't save you. Only claws and teeth matter then. Then I guess we'll see, won't we?" She walked away before he could respond, her hands shaking but her head high. That night, Kael found her on the battlements. "Heard you had words with Gareth," he said. "News travels fast." "It does when you publicly challenge one of my oldest warriors." He leaned against the wall beside her. "How'd it go?" "He thinks I'm naive, weak, dangerous. He's afraid." Alara looked at him. "Of what?" "Of change. Of losing his place in an order he understands. Of discovering that everything he built his life around might be wrong." But Kael's eyes were distant. "I understand it. I was the same way before you showed me different." "What if he's right, though? What if I am making things worse? Are people eating better than they were 2 months ago?" "Yes." "Do more wolves have safe places to live?" "Yes." "Are disputes being resolved without bloodshed?" "Mostly." "Then you're not making things worse. You're making them different, and different terrifies people who've survived by knowing exactly where they stand." He took her hand. "Give it time. Some will come around, others won't. But the ones who matter already see what you're doing. And Gareth? Gareth will either adapt or get left behind. His choice." 2 weeks later, the test came. A messenger arrived from one of the neighboring packs, Alpha Garrett's territory. He requested a meeting with Kael. Urgent. They met in the Great Hall, Garrett arriving with a small guard and a grim expression. "We have a problem," Garrett said without preamble. "Raiders, hitting border settlements, taking supplies, burning homes. We've lost 3 villages in the past month." "Why come to me?" Kael asked. "Because they're not just hitting my territory, they're hitting everyone's. And the attacks are coordinated, professional, someone's organizing them." Lyris, who'd arrived for the meeting, leaned forward. You think it's Davrin's people, remnants of his army. That's my guess. But it doesn't matter who's behind it. What matters is stopping them. Garrett looked at Kyle. I'm proposing a joint operation. Multiple packs working together, sharing intelligence, coordinating patrols. That's unprecedented, someone said. So is an organized raiding force. Garrett's jaw was tight. The old way would be for each pack to defend its own territory, let the weak fall. But I've been thinking about what happened at the battle, how we stood together, and I'm wondering if maybe that's the smarter play. Kael glanced at Alara. She gave a tiny nod. I'm in, Kael said. What do you need? Warriors, scouts, and someone who can coordinate between packs without ego getting in the way. Garrett's eyes moved to Alara. I hear you've been running a council, making different groups work together. Think you could scale that up? Alara's stomach dropped. You want me to coordinate a multi-pack operation? I want someone who sees the big picture, who doesn't care about pack politics, who just wants to solve the problem. Garrett smiled slightly. From what I hear, that's you. I'm not a warrior. I've never run a military operation. You don't need to run the military side. I've got warriors for that. I need someone to make sure everyone's actually communicating, to spot problems before they become disasters, to keep alphas from getting in pissing contests when we should be working together. Kael spoke quietly. You don't have to do this. Alara looked at him, then at Garrett, then at Lyris, who was watching with interest. This was what she'd been advocating for, cooperation, breaking down the old barriers, proving that working together was stronger than standing alone. But it was one thing to talk about it, another to actually do it. Okay, she said. I'll do it. The operation took 3 weeks to plan. Representatives from 5 different packs gathered at the stronghold. Alara facilitated meetings, mediated disputes, and slowly, painfully, got everyone on the same page. It was exhausting. Alphas who'd been rivals for decades had to work together. Warriors had to take orders from wolves outside their pack. Everyone had to trust that the others would hold up their end. But gradually, it came together. The plan was simple. Coordinated patrols along all borders, shared intelligence, rapid response teams ready to move the moment raiders were spotted. And it worked. The first raiding party was caught within a week, the second a few days later. By the 3rd week, the attacks had stopped entirely. The raiders had either been captured or fled to easier targets. When the operation concluded and the packs gathered for a final meeting, Garrett stood and addressed the assembled wolves. We did something here that's never been done before. 5 packs, working as one. No backstabbing, no territorial disputes. Just cooperation. He looked at Alara, and we did it because someone showed us how. Someone who doesn't have a wolf, doesn't have an army, doesn't have traditional power, but who has something more important, vision. The room was silent. I don't know about the rest of you, Garrett continued, but I'm tired of the old ways. Tired of watching good wolves die because we're too proud to ask for help. Tired of treating strength like it's only measured in blood. He turned to Kael. What you're building here, this new order, I want in. One by one, the other alphas stood. Not all of them. Some left, unwilling to embrace change. But enough to matter. That night, Alara stood in the courtyard watching the visiting packs prepare to leave. They were laughing, sharing food. Warriors from different territories exchanged training techniques. A month ago, this would have been unthinkable. Kael found her there, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Proud of yourself? He asked. Terrified mostly. This could still fall apart. It could. Or it could keep growing. Either way, you started something real. She leaned back against him. We started it, together. True. But you're the one who made everyone believe it was possible. He kissed the top of her head. The girl no one wanted, changing the world. There's poetry in that. There's irony in it. That too. They stood there together as the sun set, watching their world transform. But there was still one piece of unfinished business. Davrin's trial came a month later. Representatives from every pack gathered to bear witness. Not a mob crying for blood, but a formal proceeding. Evidence presented. Testimony heard. A chance for the accused to speak. Davern stood in chains, his face twisted with contempt. Anything you want to say? Kyle asked. You're all fools. This peace won't last. The moment you face real pressure, you'll turn on each other like the animals you are. Maybe, Kael said, or maybe we've learned that working together makes us stronger than standing alone. Naive, weak, pathetic. Davern's eyes found Alara. And you? You think you've won? You think being the king's whore makes you special? Alara felt Kael tense beside her, but she placed a hand on his arm. I don't think I'm special, she said calmly. I think I saw a better way and fought for it. That's all. A better way that'll crumble the moment I'm gone. Because without an enemy to unite against, you'll tear yourselves apart. Then I guess we'll have to prove you wrong. The verdict was unanimous. Exile. Davern would be escorted to the farthest border and forbidden from ever returning. If he came back, the sentence would be death. As the guards led him away, Davern laughed. This isn't over. You'll see. You'll all see. But his words rang hollow, because he'd already lost. 6 months after the trial, Alara stood in front of the assembled council, now expanded to include representatives from multiple packs. They'd grown, evolved. What had started as a small group trying to solve immediate problems had become something bigger. A genuine coalition working toward shared goals. We need to talk about the future, Alara said. We've made progress. Real progress. But we're still operating in a system designed for the old way. Individual packs competing for resources. Alphas ruling by strength alone. Omegas with no voice. She paused, looking around the room. I'm proposing we formalize what we've been doing. Create an actual alliance. With shared laws. Shared protection. Shared resources. Not one pack dominating the others, but all of us standing together as equals. The room erupted. Some voices supported, others opposed. Arguments flew. Lyris's voice cut through the chaos. You're talking about dissolving pack boundaries, fundamentally changing how we've existed for centuries. I'm talking about evolving, Alara said, about recognizing that the world is changing and we can either change with it or get left behind. And who leads this alliance? Someone asked. Who has final say? A council. Elected representatives from each territory, rotating leadership, no one wolf in charge forever. That's insane. That's democracy, Alara countered. And it works. We've proven it works. On a small scale, anyway. This is just scaling up. Kael, who'd been silent until now, spoke. I support this. Completely. Every head turned. I'm tired of being king, Kael continued. Tired of making decisions that affect everyone based solely on what I think is right. Tired of the weight, the isolation, the assumption that one person should have all the power. He looked at Alara. She showed me there's a better way, and I want to be part of building it. The debate raged for hours, but by the end, a vote was called. The alliance passed, narrowly, but it passed. The celebration that night was unlike anything the Stronghold had ever seen. Wolves from different packs, different territories, different backgrounds, all coming together, not to fight, not to compete, but to build. Alara found a quiet corner overwhelmed by it all. Mira appeared beside her. You did it. We did it, all of us. Don't be modest. This was your vision, your stubborn refusal to accept that things had to stay the way they'd always been. Mira smiled. The girl I met 6 months ago could barely hold a knife. Now she's reshaping entire civilizations. I'm still terrible with a knife. You're better. Not great, but better. Mira's expression turned serious. What you've built here, it matters. It's going to outlast all of us. That's legacy. Alara's eyes stung. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did. I didn't believe in you. You were a terrified kid who looked like she'd break if someone breathed too hard. Mira's smile widened. But you proved me wrong. Best kind of surprise. Kael found Alara later, on their usual spot on the battlements. Tired? He asked. Exhausted? Happy? Terrified? All of it. He pulled her close. Welcome to leadership. I don't want to lead forever. This was never about me being in charge. I know. But for now, you're what people need, a A symbol, proof that anyone can rise, that your starting point doesn't determine your ending. She looked up at him. What about you? Are you okay with stepping back? Really? More than okay. Relieved. He smiled. I was never meant to be king. I was born into it, forced into it, and I did my best. But you chose this, fought for it. That makes all the difference. We still have so much work to do. The alliance is fragile. Some packs didn't join. There'll be opposition, challenges, and we'll face them, together, like we always do. He kissed her forehead. But tonight, can we just enjoy what we've built? Yeah, she said softly. We can do that. They stood there as the celebration continued below, watching their world transform into something new, something better, something built on cooperation instead of domination, on trust instead of fear, on the radical idea that everyone, regardless of their strength or status, had value. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was theirs. A year later, on the anniversary of the battle that had changed everything, Alara stood before the assembled alliance. The crowd had grown. Thousands of wolves from dozens of territories, all gathered to witness the formal ratification of the new order. Kale stood beside her, but not as king, as her partner, her equal, her chosen. A year ago, Alara began, her voice carrying across the crowd, I was nobody, a wolfless omega that no one wanted, a liability, a weakness. I'd spent my entire life being told I was broken, wrong, less than. She paused, meeting eyes throughout the crowd, and I believed it, because when everyone tells you the same thing, it's hard not to. But then something changed. Someone saw me differently, not as broken, but as different. And different doesn't mean less. It just means different. That person taught me that strength comes in forms we don't expect. That courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and choosing to act anyway. That the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to accept that things have to stay the way they've always been. She looked at Kael. He smiled. We've built something here, together. Something that says your worth isn't determined by your strength, or your birth, or your ability to shift. Your worth is determined by your choices, by what you contribute, by how you treat others, by whether you choose to tear down or build up. This alliance isn't perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to disagree. We're going to face challenges that test everything we've built. But we're facing them together, as equals, as partners, as wolves who've chosen cooperation over conquest. She took a breath. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. We're stronger together than we ever were apart, and that's worth fighting for. The crowd erupted in cheers. Alara stepped back, her heart pounding, and Kael's hand found hers. Well said, he murmured. I'm shaking. You're always shaking before speeches. Then you do them anyway. That's courage. The ceremony continued, treaties signed, alliances formalized, a new order officially born. When it finally ended, Alara and Kael slipped away from the crowd, finding refuge in their chambers. How do you feel? Kael asked. Like I just signed away my quiet life forever. You did that a year ago when you stepped into that iron room and calmed a cursed beast. True. She kicked off her formal shoes, sighing in relief. But I'd do it again. All of it. Even the getting stabbed part. Especially that. It made you realize you couldn't lose me. She grinned. Best decision I ever made, getting in the way of that blade. That's a terrible lesson to take from that experience. Too late. Already learned it. He pulled her close, and they swayed together in the quiet of their room, the celebration continuing outside. What now? Alara asked. Now we live. We work. We keep building. He pulled back to look at her. And eventually, when you're ready, we make it official. She raised an eyebrow. Official how? He pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple silver, etched with symbols representing every pack in the alliance. Marry me, he said. Not because of politics or tradition or because anyone expects it, but because I love you, because you're my partner in every way that matters. Because I want to spend whatever time we have building this new world with you. Alara's vision blurred. That's not a question. Marry me? He amended. Better. She held out her hand. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and they held each other as the sun set on the old world and rose on something new. The wedding was small, intimate, just close friends and allies. No grand ceremony, no political maneuvering, just two people choosing each other in front of witnesses who mattered. Mira officiated, her voice steady. Do you, Kael Draven, take Alara Voss as your partner? To stand beside her in strength and in weakness, in triumph and in failure, in transformation and in peace? I do. And do you, Alara Voss, take Kael Draven as your partner? To anchor him when the beast rises, to challenge him when he's wrong, to build with him when the world needs changing? I do. Then by the authority vested in me by absolutely no one because we're making up new rules anyway, I declare you bonded. You may kiss. They did. To cheers and laughter and a few tears. And afterward, at the feast, Lyris stood to make a toast. To the king who gave up his throne to build something better. To the Omega who refused to accept that broken meant worthless. To the revolution they started. And to the future they're creating, one choice, one challenge, one change at a time. Glasses raised, voices joined, and in that moment, Alara felt complete. Not because she'd found her place in the world, but because she'd created it, built it with her own hands, her own choices, her own stubborn refusal to accept that things had to stay the way they'd always been. She was the girl no one wanted, who became the woman everyone needed, the wolfless Omega who'd tamed a beast and changed a world. And her story, their story, was just beginning. Years later, when people told the tale, they'd argue about which part was most important. Some said it was the moment she calmed the beast at the ceremony. Others claimed it was the battle where she brought Kael back from the edge. A few insisted it was the formation of the alliance that mattered most. But those who'd lived through it knew the truth. The most important moment was the first one, when a cursed king looked at a broken girl and said, "You didn't flinch." When he chose to see her differently, when she chose to believe she could be more than what everyone told her she was. Because that's where all revolutions start, not with grand gestures or dramatic battles, but with one person refusing to accept the world as it is and daring to imagine something better, and then having the courage to build it. One day, one choice, one small act of defiance at a time, until impossible becomes inevitable, until broken becomes whole, until the girl no one wanted becomes the heart of a new empire, and the monster becomes a king reborn, not through violence or domination, but through love, trust, and the radical belief that together they could be better than they ever were apart. That was the real victory, not the battles won or the enemies defeated, but the choice to keep choosing each other, keep building, keep believing. Even when it was hard, especially when it was hard, because that's what strength really meant. Not the absence of fear or weakness, but the refusal to let them win. And Alara Voss, the wolfless Omega, the conduit, the revolutionary, had proven that beyond any doubt. She'd taken a world built on cruelty and fear and transformed it into something built on hope. And in doing so, she'd proven that the most powerful force in the world wasn't claws or teeth or curses. It was the courage to believe you could change things, and the stubborn determination to prove it. One impossible day at a time.